You're listening to Sarah Hagan Backstage, with interviews and insights from years inside the music industry. Join Sarah as she talks with masters of their crafts, finding out what makes them tick, both inside and outside of the music business.
Welcome to Sarah Hagan Backstage. My guest today, Marc Quiñones, is a master percussionist who has played with an incredible array of musical acts, including Spyro Gyra, Marc Anthony, the Allman Brothers, and most recently, the Doobie Brothers. We will talk about Marc's start in percussion, growing up in the Bronx with weekly jam sessions with family and friends, his musical journey, and what he is up to now. So come along with me as I catch up with Marc Quiñones. Marc, welcome to the podcast.
Sarah, thank you for having me. We haven't seen each other in quite some time, but it's really good to see you.
Yeah, it's great to see you too. It's been a very, very long time. We usually do not go this long without seeing each other, so
Right.
it's been a while. But speaking of the time that it's been, how has everything been for you through the pandemic?
It's been pretty good. Luckily I've taken up the sport of golf, which was able to occupy my time when I wasn't playing any music here in Florida. I
Yes.
live in Florida now, which was another somewhat blessing to, state to be in during the pandemic where I could get out and play golf while people were confined to their houses in places like New York and Massachusetts and, where it's a little colder in the wintertime.
Right.
So, it was pretty good. I don't have any complaints.
I'm glad you could play golf. Speaking of golf, I was going to bring this up at some point, but now is a good time too. We're going to talk tons about percussion and music and all of that stuff, but one of the best memories that I have with you is golfing together.
Oh, that's right.
Right?
Oh, that's right. I completely forgot about this. Wow.
We had so much fun, even though I am not proficient at golf and you are, but you were a fantastic instructor. You helped me along. We were in the Zildjian golf tournament together, and I actually have a
Oh,
trophy
I should have gotten my trophy out.
here.
Had it. See, you should have forewarned me. I would have gotten my trophy out for this thing, so we could compare trophies.
Right?
Yeah, yeah, fun times. We were a team, so I had to help you, along. You know what I mean?
Right? Well, it was best ball. So I think
Right.
we used my ball once, I think, but I think we mostly used your ball. We mostly found my balls like around on the course.
Well, when you're only hitting it 50 yards, then it's not that difficult to find. No, just kidding.
You know what?
Just kidding.
But I was really good at chipping onto the green and putting. I do remember that. I did contribute in that
And look,
aspect.
we walked away with a trophy, which means that
We did.
we did
got a
pretty good.
trophy. So
Yeah.
there we
So
go. But
this was not a one of these. Everybody gets a trophy for a job well done. You had to
no,
earn the trophy.
we earned this trophy. This trophy was earned. It was well earned. I'm holding it up for anyone listening at home. It's a beautiful. I think it was third place that we got, and
I played in two of them, and I have one of the other trophies that was a cymbal and sticks.
yes, and I think you won first place that year, didn't you?
I think so.
Well, I was not on your team. That could be why, but
I don't know what it was. Maybe I played a little better that year. It wasn't your fault.
that's very graceful of you. Yes, but we had an absolute blast. I have to just say it was so much fun. I really enjoy golf, and I'm not a terrible golfer. I just really, don't have. I do not live in Florida.
You don't have the time to play. You have a
I don't have
family,
the
you have a
time.
job, you have a
Exactly.
husband, kids, it's
But maybe in my retirement years, I'll have to take some Marc Quiñones lessons and get back to
I don't know
golfing.
about that. I mean, I can only fix my own game. I can't fix anybody else's.
I love it. So that's good. But also besides golfing, you've had a bunch of gigs, which is amazing. Like I've been following you on on Instagram, and it feels like, obviously you're not out on tour and all the dates that you normally would do in a normal year, normal air quotes year, but it has been really good to see you out there playing here and there. You just did the Latin Grammys.
I did. But, in 2020, and like at the height of the pandemic, there really was no music to be had.
Right.
So I spend a lot of time, you know, playing golf. I did do some production work, because here in Florida, I work with Tony Sukar.
Hmm.
And so he has a studio at his family's house, which we were able to confine ourselves in the studio and not, worry about, being exposed to anybody else. But, it wasn't really like before that we had done we were doing a lot of sessions where we could have people in the studio.
Hmm.
And so, towards the winter months of 2020, we started doing, trying to open up sessions a little more, and we were exposed to COVID. I got COVID in October of 2020 as a result of it.
Oh
And then
man.
Tony got it as well. So, I mean, luckily, it didn't really hit me hard. It didn't really affect me except my sense of taste and smell. And everybody says that I didn't have any taste to begin with. Um, so it didn't really matter. But yeah, it wasn't too bad. We did a couple of production works, but live gigs, I haven't. You know, 2021, we picked up with the Doobie Brothers
Hmm.
in July of 2021, um, and we actually did. Went out on the road till October, till the end of October. But in the very beginning of that run, three of our guys were exposed to COVID, so we had to shut it down for a month and a half. I mean, a
Oh,
week and a half.
a week and a half. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's still pretty pretty crazy out there. But
Yeah.
luckily, this year we were able to, well, 2021 we were able to at least play some live music again. It was a
Yes.
year and a half of no music for me, which was kind of strange, because I've been
Yeah.
playing music for such a long time and being on the road for such a long time that a year and a half without getting on a plane or getting on a bus or getting on stage was so
It's bizarre,
surreal.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of which, too, you say you've been playing music for a really long time, and it has been a really long time because you started playing when you were like really, really young. Was it like 3 years old or
I,
something
I
like that?
started I started banging on drums according to my parents when I was 3 years old, maybe
Hmm.
younger than that, but really like gravitating because my dad is a percussionist, and his brother, my uncle, was a percussionist because he's now deceased. But and in my house there were drums out in every corner of the house. My dad had hand drums everywhere, so I would get up in the morning and just go to a drum and start banging.
Hmm.
Um, you know, and so it seemed kind of a natural thing for me. Yeah, and so you know, fast forward 50 somewhat years, I'm still playing music.
I love it. Yeah. And did you take formal lessons when you were younger as well?
I did not, nobody wants to believe me when I say that never studied rudiments, and I've never been like a shed head. I've
Right,
never
right.
had the discipline because I've been playing. Like my first professional gig was at 9 years old at Carnegie Hall in a Latin opera that was produced by a guy named Larry Harlow. Um, it was loosely based on, the Who's Tommy,
Mhm.
um, but it was a Latin version, and it was just music.
Oh,
There was no acting. It was just narrated and playing of music, like symphonic. There was a symphony orchestra, with all Latin, and then like Latin percussionists and everything, horns. It was really, really, really amazing production.
it sounds
And
incredible.
yeah, so I've been playing gigs since I was a kid. So to me, that's the best form of practice.
Right, it's
Because you
just
could you could sit at home and practice, 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 but everything changes when you're on the stage, and anything can happen at any given moment. So you have to be prepared for that. So the best education that I had was being on gigs, at an early age.
That's amazing. And did you actually teach yourself to read music then? Because you
Well,
do
no,
read.
that came about when I went into high school. I was trying to get into music and art, but I
Mhm.
was already in the ninth grade, and at music and art, you can only get in going into your first year of high school. And in
Gotcha.
New York, there were certain schools that started high school from 9 to 12, and some that started from 10 to 12th grade.
Mhm.
And so I was already in the ninth grade, and they wouldn't give me an audition at music and art. So um, once I get to the music program at my high school, all the drum chairs were filled.
Right.
So so they were like, look, if you want to be in the music department, you have to choose an instrument. So I was like, all right, give me the trumpet.
Oh,
not
wow.
not knowing anything about trumpet really, but
Mhm.
somehow I was able, like I had a great sound, and I had to learn how to read music in order to play in the band. So I literally learned how to read music in my high school years, because I played throughout my whole high school. Once I started playing, I really enjoyed it. So for the 4 years I was in high school, I played trumpet in school.
I love that. I had no idea. All these hidden
Yeah.
talents.
Well,
Do you still do you
I haven't
still
played a trumpet since. No, no, no.
Okay, that
I
was
don't
going
need, I
to
don't
be my
even
next
own one
question.
anymore.
You
Yeah,
don't
no,
own
no, no.
one?
No, no. I mean, you
I
know,
bet. I bet if you
it's
picked
too
one
bad I
up,
gave it up. But
right?
yeah, I could probably get a sound out of it.
You
I
could do
still
it.
know, the right position and everything. But yeah, no, I don't even
That's
own one. I don't
amazing.
even own a mouthpiece anymore.
Yeah. We could fix that.
But I'm really grateful for that opportunity, because it allowed me to learn how to read music, which really, enhanced my recording, status in New York City. So
Absolutely.
it was a
Yes.
positive thing.
Yes. And speaking of New York City, so you were born and grew up in the Bronx, right? And
Born and raised.
born and raised. And how did that play a part in like your musical journey? What were you
Well,
surrounded by Latin music as a kid, and like what did you grow up listening to?
my household was an eclectic, mixture of music. Like my dad was, salsa music, Cuban music. My mother was Frank Sinatra, Engelbert Humperdinck,
Love it.
Andy Williams, Tony Bennett. That was her thing. And then my sister, who's a couple years older than me, was into the R&B stuff. So, in my house, you would hear any style of music played at any given moment. So I was exposed to a lot of music. But at the same token, because my dad and my uncle, are percussionists, I grew up in a house that, you know, anyone that knows Latin musicians, percussionists, like Jerry Gonzalez, Milton Cardona, Frankie Malave, all these people used to come to my house and jam with my father and my uncle. Or we'd go out to a park, take our drums, and everybody would, on the weekends, it was
Mhm.
every weekend there was a jam session, whether it was in my house or in another location. We were getting in a car and going, to play drums somewhere every weekend,
That's
including Central
amazing.
Park. So,
Wow.
my formative years were I was surrounded by some amazing percussionists that had a lot of influence on me, including, especially my dad and my uncle.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that. I can like it's like I'm imagining a scene from a movie kind of thing, like a jam in Central
And
Park.
and because I'm a 60s baby, the music scene in New York in the 70s was, I am so fortunate to have grown up in that era, because it doesn't exist anymore now. There are no more clubs. There are no more, like, you know, multiple Latin bands playing in clubs. Like, you could go to a club in the 70s and there were literally 4 or 5 different bands playing, and the place was jam packed, people dancing, having a great time. And, it was the who's who of Latin music at that time. You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't exist anymore in New York City, because, the landlords have priced all the club owners out of space, club space,
Right.
and realty space. So I
Yeah.
was really fortunate.
That does sound like an amazing, like, time growing up and forming your your musical tastes and your talents and all that stuff too. Um, and then, of course, you played with the Allman Brothers for we were just talking about this before we started recording, but
Hmm
23 years.
I spent 23 years. I joined the Allman Brothers when I was 27 years old,
Wow.
which was one of the most amazing, things that happened to me, both musically and, a lot of other things. I've been exposed to a lot of people, a lot of music because of the Allman Brothers.
Mhm.
Like I didn't really know who they were, before I joined them because growing up, in New York, Puerto Rican, in the Bronx,
Mhm.
we didn't listen to rock and roll in my house. Like I said, it
Mhm.
was eclectic, but rock and roll wasn't, the closest to rock and roll was Santana because it was Latin based, right?
Right.
So, like Allman Brothers music, and Allman Brothers weren't really radio friendly. Like when I joined the Doobie Brothers, which we'll get to that, I knew
Mhm.
more Doobie Brothers songs than I did Allman Brothers songs because they were
Sure.
radio friendly. Um, Allman Brothers play songs that are 30 minutes long. Nobody wants to
Right.
play that on the radio unless it's an independent radio station, right? That has
Mhm.
the capacity to play a song for 30 minutes. But so, I didn't know who they were, but once I joined them, I realized that I was in a band that was, a real important part of the fabric of rock and roll music, of Americana music.
Mhm.
Um, I didn't know what I was getting myself into, but I'm really glad that I fell into that position.
Right, and, like and musicianship-wise, just
Hmm
the most incredible musicians, just everyone
Yeah.
involved, just
Well,
top of their game.
before I joined the Allman Brothers, I spent the year on the road with David Byrne. That was
Mhm,
my real exposure to like the other side of music that wasn't Latin.
mhm,
Even though the music that we played with David was Latin, the production side of it and everything, every venue we played was completely different from anything that I did, on the Latin side of things. We recorded a record called Ray Momo, and one of the guys that I mentioned earlier, Milton Cardona, was the conga player on it. Jose Mangual was the conga player. Those two guys were very instrumental in Willie Colon's, start in music. They were the rhythm
mhm.
section in Willie Colon's band in the 60s. And they recorded on this record with David Byrne, along with myself and a bunch of other Latin musicians. And so once the recording was done, David was like, you know, since you guys recorded, I'd rather take you on the road. I don't want to have to put a band of people that didn't play the music already. So here we are, and I call it a 17-piece traveling circus because, you know, here you are trying to wrangle all these Latinos,
Yeah.
on the road that are not used to being, like this structure, because it's a whole different mentality
Mhm.
in the American, in the Anglo market of music than it is in the salsa side. Salsa's everybody's free spirited, having a great old time. And here it's like, dude, we got to be downstairs at lobby hall at 7 o'clock. We got a bus to catch to the airport, or we got a plane, whatever. And it was like
Mhm.
wrangling all these guys, man. It was just pretty hysterical, man. But that was my real exposure to like the other side of music. And then, after that, I joined Spyro Gyra, and I spent
Mhm.
the year with them with Richie Morales playing drums, which was amazing.
Yes.
One of my oldest friends, Oscar Cartaya, who was the bass player in Spyro Gyra, and he actually called me for a recording. And after I finished recording, Jay Beckenstein, said, would you want to go on the road with us, this summer? And I was like, sure.
Mhm.
It just kind of organically happened. I went, I did the studio work, and then, next thing you know, I'm on the road with Spyro Gyra, which is what led to the Allman Brothers because Butch Trucks was a huge Spyro Gyra fan. And I was playing in his hometown at the time in Tallahassee, and he was in the audience with his wife. He bought tickets to
Oh,
come because
wow.
he's a Spyro Gyra fan. And so after the show, our manager, comes to me and he says, Mark, there's a Butch Trucks from the Allman Brothers that wants to meet you. And I'm like, I don't know who Butch Trucks is, and I don't know who the Allman Brothers are. Which, I mean, it was true. I had
Yeah.
no idea. So, he comes backstage, and this is after the show. Everybody's in the dressing room, either eating or just relaxing. And Butch, from all those years of playing, you know, in front of the guitar stacks, had a lot of hearing loss. So he used to
Hmm.
talk really, really loud.
Hmm.
You knew Butch Trucks.
Yes,
You
yes,
know how loud he spoke.
yes.
So he comes, backstage, and he's like, and I'm gonna use a little profanity because I'm gonna do it in the voice of Butch Trucks. So he comes backstage and he goes, "You were fucking amazing. You were the fucking show." And I'm like, and I'm looking at him like, who is this guy? Who's like, and I'm like, red faced, like because he's, talking to me, but everybody
Hmm.
can hear him.
Oh my gosh.
I'm gonna steal you from this band. And I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? What is happening right now?
Oh my
And so
gosh.
so he's like, give me your telephone number. And so I'm like, all right, here you go. And that 1990, I don't even know if there were cell phones then. I don't think there
I
were.
don't think
I can't
so.
I can't remember that far back when it comes to
No,
phones, because cell phones are a part of our life now, right? So I can't
exactly.
remember the timeline. So I don't really think anything of it. I'm like, I'm like all shell shocked with everything, because here's this guy like so loud, and I'm like, shit, what just happened, right? So
Yeah.
like two months pass by, and I get a phone call from him, and he goes, "Mark, Butch Trucks, we're in Memphis recording a record. I want you to come down and lay down some percussion. Are you available?" I was like, "Sure." So they fly me to Memphis. I'm there for 5 days. I don't know who anybody is except for Greg, because of his
Hmm.
relationship with Cher, and his soul. Like he had a lot more airtime than the rest
Sure.
of the guys in the band. So I go and I record, go home. I don't really think anything about it. A couple months go by, phone rings. "Mark, what trucks? We just finished mixing the record, and the stuff you played was amazing, man. We're going to Europe in 2 months to promote the record. You know, we'd love for you to go with us. Are you available?" And at that point, I wasn't in Spyro Gyra anymore.
Hmm.
So I was like, "Yeah, I'm available." He goes, "We don't have a lot of money to pay you," because this was 1990, like the end of 1990, going into 91.
Hmm.
And they had just gotten back together in 89 for their 20th anniversary. Because in
Hmm.
the
Right.
80s, they didn't really play much because of, the music culture had changed a little bit in the 80s for what they
Right.
were doing.
Exactly.
And they were a group that was true to their music. They weren't trying to, you know, go with the fads. They were
Hmm.
true to their, jam music and their style of music.
Yes.
So they had only been back together for a year and a half. And he's like, "We don't have a lot of money to pay you, and we don't even know if it's going to work," because it was him and J on drums,
Hmm.
and I was going to be the third wheel. So
Yeah.
they were like, "We don't know if it's going to work live because we've never had a percussionist in the band, but we want you to go on the road with us." And I go to Europe with them, and I never left. 23 years.
Amazing. It is
It, you know,
amazing.
there was no audition, there was nothing. It was organically done, from a recording to being invited to go on the road, and then I set up my tent and never left. I
It's
became
so
a
great.
I became a what do you call it? What's the word I'm looking for? Oh, I can't think of it right now. But where I set up I moved in and I never moved out.
Yes, exactly. I'm glad that that happened because,
Yeah.
I grew up listening to the Allman Brothers, and I'm really glad that they didn't go with the '80s trend because I can't even imagine what that would have sounded like. That's not,
Right.
just doesn't work. But when I started going to shows, that was the era when you were in the band, and it just,
Mhm.
I can't imagine not having you there. It just, you lent so much to the sound and the show, and the three of you together, it was just so good. You just worked. It was just
Well,
perfect.
I really think, what makes me feel good about my time in the Allman Brothers is that when
Mhm.
I, especially back then, when I was still like new in the band, a lot of like the diehard fans would come up to me and say, we really like the old stuff, but we can't listen to it because your sound is not on it. You know what I mean?
Wow.
So, which meant that I actually added something to the music that,
Yeah.
because there's some people that are like, oh, I don't want to hear that shit. I just want to hear the original stuff.
Right,
It's not the
right.
same.
Yeah.
This was the total opposite. They were like, we love it, but because we don't hear your element in there, we'd rather hear the current, version with you on it. And to me,
Yeah.
that's like, that makes me feel good that I did my job.
Sure.
And
Yes.
I tell people that I think my years in salsa bands where there's either two percussionists or three percussionists, everybody's got a role to play, right? So
Mm-hmm.
for me as a percussionist, I didn't go in there thinking I'll just play this. No, like in the first couple of rehearsals, I wouldn't play anything. I would
Mm-hmm.
just sit back and listen to see where I could
Where
fit
you
in.
fit in. Yeah.
And Dickie Betts would turn around and be like, "Hey, Mark, are you not going to play?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm going to play, but I have to hear where I'm going to play." You know
I
what I mean?
love
And
that.
there were certain songs that I would just be like, "I'm not going to add anything to this. So I'm just going
Mm-hmm.
to sit this one out." You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and it wasn't for, to be lazy. It was just that the music was dictating, what I needed to do. And there were
Yes.
certain songs that just didn't need me in it. You
I
know what I
love
mean?
it.
And not that all of them needed me, right? Because they played 20 years without me, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there were certain songs that my rhythm kind of enhanced the rhythms that JMO and Butch were playing. And then there were
Mm-hmm.
some where it was like, that's enough rhythm in this. It doesn't need
Yes.
anymore, you know? And so, it was a good time. I enjoyed my
That's
time with
a
the Allman Brothers. I'm really grateful for my time with the Allman Brothers. And I'm grateful to Butch Trucks, who's no longer with us, man. But,
mhm.
you know, I'm really grateful for him having the foresight to, see that, I could, be a part of this institution. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so I'm really grateful for him.
That's amazing, and I feel like there are some lessons in there, where you really served the music. You didn't come into a situation and play all over everything, like, you
Right.
listened and you took your time and you figured out where the percussion parts were best served, um, in the music, and I love that. I think that's an important thing for anyone in a new situation to do, I think, is spend the
I
time to observe and listen,
Yeah,
right?
I always feel like, sometimes we percussionists, right? I say percussionists because there are people that say they're percussionists that don't really play the instruments to their full capacity. Or there's some that think that they have to play everything that's in their setup in one song. And it's like, no,
Sure.
it's like, you know, as a percussionist, you should also be a musician and musical,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And play, less. You can't stress the fact that less is always, less is more, right?
Mhm.
You know, the song is going to dictate what it needs. So take a moment and listen to it, right?
Mhm.
And then, I tell this story to everybody. I was having a conversation with Ralph McDonald, who, amazing percussionist, right?
Yes.
He shows up to a studio with two congas and a duffel bag, full of like minor percussion stuff.
Mhm.
And the producer's like, "Ralph, where's the rest of your stuff?" And he looks at the guy and goes, "If it's not in this bag, the song doesn't need it."
I love it. I love that.
So, he didn't have to show up with a boatload of stuff, right? I mean, yeah, you can add a lot of colors and things to songs, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Absolutely.
So, it's like I I I'm always of the mindset that, the song is gonna dictate what it needs.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
play for the music, not for myself. And that's
Right.
always been my thing, and I think that's why I've been able to work so much, is that people know that, I and I don't want to sound like kind of full of shit about myself, but I'm very musical when I play, right? I play for the music. I don't,
Hmm.
I'm not trying to showcase myself, you know.
Right.
I don't, I don't, I don't play music for, for acknowledgement, for accolades, for anything. I play music because I love music. I have a passion for it, and I have a lot of respect for it. And so, you know, I feel like, I try to give it, you know, the best that I can and what it's asking me for.
Absolutely. And I think that's when you kind of transcend to where you are. Your status in the industry is like you're a master at your craft, and it has a lot to do with the fact that you're doing it for the right reasons. You're creating for the right reasons. You're letting the music kind of like guide you where you need to go. That's always my favorite, when I can see in someone that this is like just passion coming out of them at every angle.
Well,
So,
I also feel like the music chose me. Like I didn't
mhm,
really choose to be a musician, right? It just happened.
right.
Like growing up, my dad worked a job and played music on the weekends. And I thought, that was going to be me as well, right? Because
Mhm,
I only grew up in a salsa music household. I
right.
never thought that I could play in a band like the Allman Brothers, that I could play in a band like the Doobie Brothers, Spyro, like that stuff to me was so alien, as a
Yes.
kid, right?
Yeah.
And, there are people that, and I don't discourage anybody from, having aspirations and dreams, right?
Mhm,
But I never really saw past what my dad was doing, right?
mhm.
Because that's where I grew up. I didn't really say I want to be a musician. No, the music kind of just grabbed me by the shirt and pulled me in,
Mhm.
and here I am. Here I am. And so, with that being said, you know, I am grateful to the music, and I give the music what I can, to the best of my ability.
I love that. I love it. And you mentioned the Doobie Brothers, and so it's just amazing that, from the Allman Brothers to the Doobie Brothers, and you mentioned how they had more radio play
Hmm.
because they had, their songs aren't like the 30-minute long songs that which I always appreciated about Allman Brothers, but like with Doobie Brothers, it's more like digestible,
Yeah,
more
and great
radio
songs. The
friendly.
Doobie
Yeah.
Brothers have some amazing songs.
Yes. Yeah.
That, like when I'm playing them, I kind of look around and is this really happening? You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
like Blackwater, listen to the music, taking it to the
Yes.
streets. Like those songs were all radio songs that I heard on the radio when I was a kid. And so I'm
Mhm.
like, shit, man, I'm actually on stage with the Doobie Brothers, and I'm like, again, grateful, how, that I'm afforded this opportunity. You know what I mean? Like and when I first joined the Doobie Brothers, I thought to myself, man, Allman Brothers just celebrated 50 years. Doobie Brothers in 2020 was their 50th anniversary as well. Like I'm playing in two bands that are the fabric of rock and
Mm.
roll music, American
Mhm.
music. I'm like, shit, how lucky am I, man?
It
You
was
know what I
pretty.
mean? Like
Yeah.
it's pretty amazing to think that this kid from the Bronx winds up in two of rock, like two iconic rock and roll bands.
Right.
For lack of a better term, you know everybody's interpretation of bands and how they see people is different. I think Doobies and Allman Brothers are two iconic bands in rock and roll history, and
Mhm.
and they're both now in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I play in both of these bands, so I'm like,
Yes.
okay, it's pretty
It
special.
it is special. It's so special. I remember you telling me that you were, joining the Doobie Brothers, and I was like, "It's perfect. It's just perfect." It it just
And
was,
again,
and
it's like one of these organic things because when
mhm,
I was in the Allman Brothers, we did shows with the Doobies, so I've known these guys for a long
mhm,
time. When I was, once the Allman Brothers stopped working, I joined Greg Allman's band, solo band, until he passed away, and
mhm,
we did shows with the Doobie Brothers. So
mhm,
what happens is they had two drummers. They let go of one of the drummers, and when we did shows with them with Greg, Ed was the sole drummer at that point,
Okay.
right? And they thought about, replacing the drummer, but then Tommy Johnson said, you know what, our music has percussion, you know, why
Mm-hmm.
don't we reach out to Mark? And actually, they reached out to me through Carl Perazzo, who's Santana's percussionist, because they're all from the Bay Area. They all know each other. And so they called Carl and they were like, listen, you know, could you reach out to Mark and let him know that we want to talk to him?
Mm-hmm.
And so, that's how that came about. And, here I am 3 years into my tenure with the Doobie Brothers. And, it's pretty amazing. Like I said, to play in a band that I grew up listening to on the radio. Like I said, I knew more of their songs than the Allman Brothers songs. So,
Yes. That's
and,
amazing.
and, and like, in 2021, we did, you know, 2020 was their 50th anniversary. So
Mm-hmm.
2021, we did the shows that we couldn't do in 2020, which included Michael McDonald, which is another, like, Michael McDonald's voice to me is another one of these, you know, iconic voices.
Mm-hmm.
Like you hear it,
Exactly.
he opens his mouth and it's Michael McDonald. It's one of these
Yes.
voices that, I ride on the same bus with Michael and with Pat Simmons and John McPhee and Ed Toad. That's my bus. And so it's weird. You're sitting in the lounge talking, having like the conversation that you and I are having right now with Mike McDonald and Pat Simmons,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, wait a minute, these are the Doobie Brothers.
Right, right. Yeah. And then you think like, is this my life?
Right,
Like,
right.
right?
How lucky am I? How lucky am I?
Right. I love
I
that.
don't, I, I don't take any of it for granted. Even though I've
Mm-hmm.
done this for a long time, to me, I'm still really appreciative of the fact that, that I get to do this and that I get to
Yes.
do it on this level and with musicians because, you know, they've been nothing but great to me. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? They've embraced me, and I'm really appreciative of that. What I'm saying. There's people that feel like they belong there, and maybe I
Mm-hmm.
do belong there. I don't know, but I don't look at it that way. I feel like I'm lucky to be there.
Yeah.
Even at this stage of my career, I'm still lucky to be there.
I love that attitude. That makes you always appreciative of what you have, and
Mhm.
I think that's important. That's an important attitude to have. And I also like thinking about your time playing with both bands and in particular with Allman Brothers, the people that would come up and play at every show or guest or sit
Mhm.
in, all the different shows you played. I mean, there must have been some, well, all of them are amazing, but there must have been some times where you're like, "What am I doing playing with this person?" Or what
I
does
mean,
anything stand out to you?
when we did our 40th anniversary with the Allman Brothers, Eric Clapton came and played 2 nights with us.
Wow.
And I was like, and Eric Clapton has a history with the Allman Brothers. Dwayne Allman played the slide guitar on Layla, right?
Mhm, mhm.
So they go back to 1970, 69, 70. And he's always been a fan of the Allman Brothers because of Dwayne Allman. So,
Mhm.
you know, when, we were celebrating, they reached out to him to come and play. And he said yes. And he was the only one that played multiple nights with us. Um, and like Taj Mahal has played with us, Edgar Winter, like all these Billy Gibbons, all these rock and roll, legends have at one point come and played with us. And even drummers like JMO is friends with so many people that Bernard Purdy has sat in with us. Um, Roy Haynes. It's like all these people, and I'm like, shit, man, this is amazing that I get
Yes.
to, be on stage with all these, people. You know,
Mm.
Allman Brothers vibe was so loose. Like
Mhm.
Doobies are pretty structured, which is okay.
Mhm.
There's nothing wrong with that. But the Allman Brothers, like when we would go to Boston, Johnny DeCristopher would come up and play. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
JMO would be like, Johnny, come up and play. and
Yeah, yeah.
just pull anybody,
Yes, yeah.
Eggy Castillo, who's a dear friend of mine and a teacher at Berkeley. He would come to shows, and I'd be like, come up and play, like they didn't care, as
Yes.
long as you could play and you weren't messing things up, they didn't care. The more the merrier, and it was pretty cool, like I exposed a lot of people to that stage.
Absolutely. I do remember hiding. I remember like
Yeah, you might have gotten pulled up there as well,
I was hiding because you did say that. You're like, "Yeah, you're going up on that stage and you're gonna play," and
Yeah.
I'm like, "I I'm gonna hide back here as much as I
You
love,
know,
love,
yeah,
love
but
the
but now
music."
you're thinking back and going, shit, man, that was my opportunity to get up and play with the
Well,
Allman Brothers.
I
Shit.
don't know. I don't know though. And I know it's loose and everything, but I'm thinking like, I'm gonna mess something up. I don't know.
Oh no, 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 no,
But
no.
But the vibe was always so much fun, and
Mhm.
I can remember standing on the side of the stage and just, you're all having a blast up there and always turning and looking and smiling and happy and, yeah, it's just
Look, if
the
if you
environment was
can't
great.
if you can't be happy and smile while you're playing music, there's a problem. You're probably in the wrong business.
I agree.
Because music is what feeds everybody's soul, regardless of the genre. Everybody, music has a way of, like making people happy. Whenever
Absolutely.
whenever something bad in this world happens, people go out in droves to hear music because it's an escape,
Mhm.
and it helps heal people. And so, you know, if you're not smiling on stage while you're playing, there's an issue, man. You're in the
Yes,
wrong
yes.
place, buddy.
Yeah, and if you think about, like, what got us through the past 2 years, even though this industry has struggled so much and it's been really, really difficult, but music is still being made, music is still being released, shows are still being played as much as possible. People are collaborating over Zoom, over sending each other files, and I think it's been healing for so many people to not only continue making music, but to listen to music, um, get that get that out there, get their
even
creativity
even
out
this
there.
this kind of dialogue has really helped a lot of people, because I'm not one. I don't really like to do interviews. I'm
Mhm.
just that guy. I don't really have a lot to say, I don't think, anyways. But you know I found myself being invited to do a lot of chats with people during the pandemic, because and looking back, like, it heals people too, because it's like, people that are, like, fans of mine, get to hear, anecdotes, stories,
Mhm.
whatever, that they would not otherwise hear if it wasn't for, having to do things like this during the pandemic. People wouldn't know much about each other, you
Right.
know. I mean,
Yes, and I
there's another side of this that we won't talk about, right? you know,
yes.
People
Yep.
becoming, social media, stars, right? I don't know
Right.
how, but
Right, right, I
but
know. It's a yeah, it's
these kind of conversations developed during the pandemic. You know what I mean?
yes.
So, it's had its good things. The pandemic, although it's brought a lot of, destruction to this world, and a lot of loss. It also has had some, positive things that have come out of it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, one of the things that I've mentioned before is, perspective. I think it's given everyone a different perspective on what's important, what is necessary, what relationships, personal, work, all of that, your even your relationship with yourself, like
mhm.
a lot of people being isolated and working through that. I think it's given a different perspective and maybe shown people what is important, what is worth time and what is not. Those kind of things.
Well, with the loss of with the loss of a lot of people due to COVID and stuff like that, you know, it has helped a lot of people be reflective and be a little more compassionate about the other.
Hmm.
And it I had a lot of friends that were, especially in the beginning. Bobby Allende, like, April of 2020 was really, really sick
Hmm.
due to COVID. A couple of my friends that are in the music, and so you find yourself reaching out to people, checking up on people that you know under normal circumstances you don't really do, right?
Yeah.
Because you're busy doing so many other things. But being isolated at home and hearing about a friend, you're checking up on people.
Hmm.
So it has had that effect on people as well, where you feel a little more compassion about other people. Um, yeah. So
Yes.
again, even though COVID has been a negative aspect and for a lot of things, it has had some positive effect on people. I
Yes.
think.
Yeah. I do think so too. Um, and
I mean, look
so
what it did to you. You're a host now. This is spectacular. Who knew?
yeah,
Sarah, the
who
host.
knew? Who knew? No, this has been so much fun, and also it's been a way to keep up with everybody,
Hmm.
and make sure that I'm bringing a little bit of the personal side of the musician to
Hmm.
everyone, which I think you just touched on. It's the social media thing has brought people a little bit closer to who the personality behind the music is, and
Right.
that to me is really important. So, but yes, so much has changed for me throughout the pandemic as well, and it's
We
just
we have
been.
we have a long history, you and I.
Yes, we do. We absolutely
Thanks
do.
thanks to Zildjian, right?
Yes,
But
absolutely.
you
Yep.
know, um, and I think we were talking about this earlier, Sarah. I have a lot of respect for you. Being the head of you know artist relations at Zildjian for the years that you were there. To be a woman, again, I feel like there aren't enough women like yourself in this business, in any business. And you really, were an instrumental part for keeping everybody happy at that company. So,
Thank
you are sorely
you.
missed. You are sorely missed.
Thank you. We
But
we
look what it's done, for you. You've taken on, another career. And so, things are, I'm
yes,
happy to see you thriving.
thank you so, so much. Thank you so much for the kind words. I absolutely loved my time working with you all. And one of my favorite things was, just talking product with you, picking symbols, and you created the El Sonido symbol at Zildjian, which was just
I did.
incredible.
which I
Uh,
was which I was proud of. I don't think there was or still is a symbol that has the characters that that symbol has.
yes.
Unfortunately, they discontinued it. So, you know, I'll see if I can come up with something else because I like
Yes.
creating product that is non-existent. Like we were speaking about this off camera that the dipstick that Zildjian has. My stick was the first one of that model that had the rubber grip on it.
Mhm.
And so I've developed a couple things that have never been on the market before with Zildjian and with Pearl. And so
Right.
I'm gonna see what I can come up with next.
I
Keep
know
keep
there are
things.
more ideas in there for sure because again, like with the music where you're serving the music and your musical parts really like fit the the needs of the music. I know product-wise, the things you've created with the companies in the past have always been something that was really needed, something that was
Mhm.
missing. And that symbol in particular, fantastic. It had it was crashable, but it had like a clear bell, and because
Well,
the bell.
it has four sounds in it. Like
Yes.
the
Yeah.
the idea really arose because again, being a salsa musician, some of these clubs don't have a big enough stage where you can put two cymbals up.
Mhm.
And if you have a ride cymbal, you don't really have a crash effect on it. If you have a
Mhm.
crash cymbal, you don't have a ride effect on it. So I was
Right.
like, you know, I had gotten an earth, symbol from Zildjian that has the Earth symbol. I think has one of the most amazing bells on it.
Yes, it
And I was
does.
like,
Yes.
I was thinking to myself, how could I get a bell like this on a 16 or because one of my favorite symbols that I had for years was a platinum 16-inch cymbal that just the sound was
Mm-hmm.
so beautiful, but it had a bell like the size of a pencil eraser on it. You couldn't get a sound out of it.
Sure.
So I'm thinking to myself, I want a cymbal that sounds like the 16-inch, platinum. So Paul Francis and I went into the lab over there and started
Yes.
trying. I was like, I need a bell that sounds like this, but I also need these kind of characters. And, the brilliant mind of Paul Francis, he was able to put together all these elements. So, it had the bell,
Mm-hmm.
it had the lathe, it had the unlathed, and then it had the crash effect. And so it's like, the symbol was so, when it first came out, people were like, what the hell is this? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, again, for reasons unknown, mostly business related, but for reasons unknown, it's been discontinued. But, hopefully we can reach a happy accord and
Yeah,
re-release
yeah,
it
absolutely. And I think,
something.
like I said, you've got more in there for sure. And I look forward to seeing what you do next with
Hmm.
products and musically. Are there any dates? I know things have been, I don't know about things with the Doobies, but have been being pushed a little bit. How are you guys doing as far as scheduling tour
Well, we
dates?
we have we have on the books right now to start rehearsing at the end of April for a residency in Vegas for 3 weeks
Oh,
at
that's
the Zap
great.
at the Zappos Theater in Vegas. But with things the way they are still, we're hoping that it doesn't change because we were able to work, in
Mhm.
2021.
Mhm.
From here to April, we don't know what's going to happen. We're hopeful
Right.
that, nothing changes and that we're able to go out again. But then after that, we have a summer run from June through October, November, something like that. We
Okay.
have to make up East Coast dates that were scheduled for 2020 that for June of 2020 that because we started in July of 21, those
Mhm.
East Coast dates never got done. So,
Right.
New York, Florida, Massachusetts, everything up and down the East Coast border. Um, you know, we're supposed to go out in June and do that, but again, we just have to wait. It's one of these waiting games.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. Well, my
hopefully,
fingers
I,
are
I
crossed.
hopefully, we'll continue to work, and my I do production work with Bobby Allende in New York, but I also do production work down here with Tony Sukar, and he just had a baby, a week and a half ago,
Oh.
and so he's got his hands full right now, but we've got a couple of things on the back burner, waiting to work on, which he's got to acclimate himself to a new family now.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Congratulations to Tony. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, we brought him on board to Zildjian last year, so he's now a Zildjian artist, and so
Very
we're
good.
planning on doing some other things. We got a lot of things pending, but we got to wait
Good.
till he you know finishes his big duties.
Yes. That's important too, right?
For
That's great
sure, for
though.
sure.
That's so great. I'm so excited there's a bunch of stuff on the horizon and I really really am hoping that the next few months bring some changes with with the pandemic and we get out of this situation everyone can get back on the road and then I'll see you guys if you come through
Yeah, yeah. I
Massachusetts
mean,
and
I don't think everything's going to get shut down again. We just can't afford to do that anymore. It's just
right.
how do you go about doing live shows and protecting people, right? That's
Absolutely.
that's that's the biggest challenge. Like protecting the people that come to the shows and also to protecting our band and crew because like
Mhm.
I said in the beginning, we thought we were in a really nice isolated bubble, and then three of the guys in the band test positive with COVID. And so it's like, you know, what do we have to do? Do we literally have to, walk around in bubble suits to not expose ourselves to anybody, right?
I
It's so we
know.
have, we have to figure out how to go about this in a safe, manner where,
Right.
people don't come to a show and leave sick. You know what I mean?
Right, right. Exactly. Yes. And yeah, so what is the protocol to move forward to be able to keep playing and keep bringing, music, live music to the masses, right? So,
I just wish people were a little more, responsible. Um, you know, People have the right to do whatever they want and
mhm,
choose to do whatever they want when it comes to vaccines or quarantines or whatever.
mhm,
But um, we have to take everybody into consideration. It's not just about an individual. You know what I mean?
absolutely.
Because what you
Yeah.
do affects a lot of other people. What
Yes.
you choose to do affects a lot of other people.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, I can't tell someone what to do. You know what I mean? But I would hope that people would do the right thing.
Yeah, always. Or, being in the music industry, we want to get things moving again. It's
Hmm.
better for all of us collectively to get things moving again. And so I've always said since the beginning of this, whatever it takes to make that happen, whatever it takes, like whatever
Well,
regulations need to happen
look,
surrounding touring
again,
or,
yeah,
not seeing people backstage. Like if I came to a show in Boston and I wasn't able to see you guys because you're in a bubble, 100% okay. I will wave to you from a distance. I will text you and say great show instead of seeing you afterward. Happy to just be there, witnessing live music. But yeah, so
I,
that's
I was gonna say that when the Doobies decided to go out, you know, they you couldn't come out if you weren't vaccinated.
mhm, mhm,
And so we lost a lot of people in our crew that decided that they didn't want to be vaccinated. So,
right.
again, they have the right to choose that.
For sure. Yes. And I also think being in this industry, you and I know a lot of people who have been very, very sick, have had long-term health effects from being sick with COVID and have died. Uh, too many people
Yeah.
because we have, this friendship base that kind of stretches across the world and excuse me, across the industry. So it's hard to hear people say like, "Oh, it's not a thing," or "It's not that bad," or "It's just a cold or the
Right.
flu." And and having people that we've loved and cared about who haven't made it through it.
Yeah.
So we have a little bit of a different perspective, I think. And when we say like, do the responsible thing, like we don't want to lose anybody else. It's
We don't.
yes, yes,
It
we
is
do.
what it is.
Right.
I'm,
It's a tough situation.
I'm not a politician. I'm a musician.
Right,
I
exactly.
want
Yeah,
more music, less hate, man. Come on
there
now.
we go. Yes, we do. We want more music,
That's
less
my
hate. I
motto.
love that.
That's my
Love it.
motto right there. Come on
I
now.
love it. Are you selling those shirts?
No, I wish this is made by a designer.
Okay. We'll have
Yeah, but
to
this is my motto. I found this shirt and I'm like, this is going to be my message. Because
perfect.
music has a way of bridging a lot of differences in people. You know what I mean?
Yes, it does. Yep.
Racially, whatever. Politically. Music brings all kinds together, and
Mhm.
it has a way of bringing people together
Yes,
and making things right, making things comfortable for people.
I love it.
So
It's so
more
true.
music, less hate.
Less hate.
That's
I
it.
love it. That'll be the theme of the day today. I'll take that, carry that with me.
Hmm.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much, Mark. It's been so amazing catching up with you, and I'll look forward to seeing you getting back out there in the touring life,
Well,
and we
thank you
will
for the invitation. Um, you know,
absolutely.
I think it was a long time in coming because, we haven't really spoken. We haven't caught up the way we did today on and off camera.
Yes,
Um, Again, I will say it again. I miss you dearly in the company. But I'm glad that we're still friends and we still communicate
or
and that,
absolutely.
things are, in a better place for you. Because again, I know it wasn't an easy transition for you. So, I'm glad to see you. I'm glad to see that beautiful smile.
Thank
Um,
you.
You were always a breath of fresh air, as
Thank
Zildjian.
you.
And again, you took care of everybody that came through that door or that called you. So, you know, you are dearly missed
Absolutely.
by
Oh my
me,
gosh.
anyways. I can't speak
I-
for everybody else, but me personally, because I'm still there, you know.
Well, thank you. Thank
Um,
you. And I loved
yeah.
every minute of it, and it was my pleasure to be there for you all for so long, and I'm happy I can still be there, kind of like, spreading the word and being present in this industry. I love you all, love drums, music, and yeah, I'm really happy. So thank you so much.
Well, again, thank you so much, and I'm glad to see you healthy, happy, and your family's healthy as well. Thank goodness,
Absolutely.
and that everything is, everything is thriving for you right now.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and for you too. And again, I just can't wait to hear some more music, see you playing out there. I love that, and
And when I come through New England, I will definitely let you know so that you can come to a show with your family or by yourself. However,
absolutely. Yes,
hopefully it'll be a time where I can see you and give you a hug, a proper hug, since I
I
haven't seen you in
know.
forever.
I know. I know. No more air hugs. We do so many air hugs
Yeah,
lately.
you know,
Want a real hug.
you know, but, you know,
Oh,
we'll take music however we can take it right now, right?
yes,
So if I
absolutely.
can't hug you, at least you could see, you can enjoy the music from a distance. But
And I
hopefully by that
will.
point, we'll be able to hug.
Yeah, just give each other a nice squeeze. I'm looking forward to that.
But what you can do is give your family a hug for me.
I
You
will
can
do
hug your
that.
family for me.
Absolutely, I will do that. Thank you, Mark,
All
and
right.
we will talk
Well,
soon for sure.
all right, Sarah. Thank you so much for the
All
invitation
right.
and
You're
much
welcome.
success in everything that you do.
And same to you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
All right. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in today. Join us each Tuesday for new episodes of Sarah Hagan Backstage.